达摩祖师，南印度人，因曾传授武艺与少林僧人，故被称为一代宗师。
The popular story of the Buddhist monk Bodhidharma creating Chinese boxing can be traced to the Tendon-Changing Classic, a 17th century manual comprising a yoga-like exercise designed to strengthen the body. It contains 2 forged prefaces claiming that the system of calisthenics was created by the Zen patriarch, and that this was the source of the military prowess of famed 12th century general Yue. Despite having no direct martial application, the exercise became closely associated with heroes and strongmen in Chinese popular culture during the 18th and 19th century. It was during the same time period that martial artists began to combine yoga and boxing into a new form of self-cultivation. Many such individuals alluded to the manual in their writings and paid homage to Yue by attributing their styles to him. In the following video, I theorized that by associating the physical practice with a patriotic hero who historically battled foreign aggressors, the manual inspired the Chinese people to take up the exercise as a means to resist the Manchu invaders who would come to rule China, and that by practicing the exercise or boxing styles influenced by it, they performed their identities as Chinese patriots. This new approach is important because it places the Tendon-Changing Classic into its correct historical context and explains why it is still popular after nearly 400 years. The first section of the video will describe how the manual was published during a time coinciding with Manchu invasions of the 17th century. The second will describe how Chinese fiction influenced statements from the manual and that this later inspired Chinese popular culture to associate the exercise with martial arts heroes. And the third will show how patriotic martial artists alluded to the manual in their writings and used Yue as a symbol of anti-foreign resistance by attributing their styles to him. Previous scholarship has shown that the classic was written in 1624 by an author with the pen name The Purple Elixir Taoist. The manual's publishing coincides with a time of great economic and political strife. Ming China was plagued by numerous natural disasters and rebellions that weakened the dynasty from within. This is when Nurhaci, a descendant of the nomadic people that General Yue historically battled, consolidated the Manchu people under his leadership and invaded northern China in 1621. He later threatened to push south and penetrate the easternmost terminus of the Great Wall in 1624, which would have placed him a mere 175 miles from the Ming capital of Beijing. Therefore, I suggest the Purple Elixir Taoist published the manual when he did to make the patriotic claim that practicing the exercise would give the Chinese the same strength to battle the invaders like Yue. The Tendon-Changing Classic is a total body exercise comprising a regimen of breathing and stretching, pestle flogging, and herbal medication. The manual claims those who master the prescribed practices will gain an invincible body capable of supernatural feats of strength. One version of the classic states that this includes the ability to kill a tiger by bashing in its head using only the fists. This is a clear allusion to a popular literary figure from the 14th century Chinese classic, The Water Margin. The protagonist Wu Song is a Chinese outlaw who uses his great strength to fight the unjust Song dynasty government. In one episode, he kills a man-eating tiger in the mountains by beating it to death with his fists. Since Wu's adventures would have been common knowledge to those reading the Tendon-Changing Classic, I suggest this allusion to such a powerful figure explains why the exercise came to be associated with martial heroes in later Chinese culture. For instance, Feng Mingqi, the hero of the 18th century novel The Scholars, derives his great strength from the exercise. It's interesting to note that Feng is based on the real-life martial artist Gan Fengqi, who, much like the fictional Wu Song, used his skills to fight an unjust government, in this case the foreign-ruled Qing dynasty. Thus, the exercise is associated with both fictional and real-life Chinese patriots. Scholars have shown that the Purple Elixir Taoist, the author of the Tendon-Changing Classic, was the first person to create a religious exercise that had indirect martial applications. This inspired later martial artists of the Qing dynasty to create a new form of self-cultivation by combining yoga with pugilism. Xingyi, or mind-intent boxing, and Taiji, or grand ultimate boxing, are 2 products of this synthesis. The 18th century Heart, Intent, and Six Harmonies boxing manual attributes a precursor of Xingyi to Yue and claims he adapted it from a martial art that he had learned as a child from an unnamed master. This manual borrows a narrative from the second preface of the Tendon-Changing Classic, in which states the general learned the yoga-like exercise as a child from an unnamed Buddhist monk. Mr. Chong's martial arts manual, an 18th century work that would influence the development of Taiji boxing, mentions the classic by name, borrows heavily from its method of cultivating internal strength, and even pays homage to Yue by associating a boxing move with his famous historical fighting force, the Yue family army. Both Xingyi and Taiji are considered internal martial arts. The dichotomy between internal and external styles first came about during the Qing dynasty. However, despite their modern association with so-called hard and soft techniques, these words were originally code for the external or foreign rulers of the Qing and the internal or native peoples of China. In fact, the aptly named internal school of the 17th century was actually an anti-Manchu association of Chinese patriots who used their skills to fight the Qing dynasty. Therefore, I suggest these martial artists used Yue as a symbol of anti-foreign resistance to help elevate their Tendon-Changing Classic-inspired boxing styles to the level of a nationalistic practice. In conclusion, the Tendon-Changing Classic is a yoga-like exercise designed to strengthen the body. It was most likely published in response to the threat of a Manchu invasion in 1624. The author purposely associated the manual with famed 12th century general Yue, who had historically battled the ancestors of these nomadic people. This was done to make the patriotic claim that practicing the exercise would give the Chinese the same strength to battle the invaders like their cultural hero. The manual claims those who master its prescribed practices will gain an invincible body capable of supernatural feats of strength, such as killing a tiger with the fists. This is a clear allusion to the popular literary character Wu Song, who beats a tiger to death in the 14th century Chinese classic The Water Margin. Alluding to such a powerful figure influenced later Chinese popular culture to associate the exercise with martial heroes and strongmen. The Tendon-Changing Classic influenced martial artists of the Qing dynasty to combine yoga with pugilism to create a new form of self-cultivation. Internal styles like Xingyi and Taiji boxing were products of this synthesis. Martial arts manuals associated with these styles draw heavily from the classic, and even pay homage to Yue by claiming him as the method's founder. Chinese patriots used these Tendon-Changing Classic-inspired styles to fight the Manchus, so associating them with Yue elevated their martial arts to a nationalistic practice. Thus we see a religious practice was transformed into martial arts used to battle foreign invaders, enabling practitioners to perform their identities as Chinese patriots. This type of patriotic kung fu, if you will, is best exemplified by the fight scene between Bruce Lee and the Japanese karate practitioners in the 1972 film Fist of Fury.